I had an awesome dad. Jack Kemp was a loving, encouraging, visionary dad. He wasn't a perfect man, because none of us are. And we live in an age where so many of us lack the real love and presence of a dad like we need. But every one of us have a perfect Heavenly Father. And I think it makes sense to concentrate on the great traits of fathering that we can pick up from one another and pass those on, so that we as dads, the next generation, can do the best job of imparting into our kids the fact that they're loved, they have an identity, they have a purpose, and that they are special in this world. And my dad did a lot of that for me. He was like the ultimate encourager. One of the things that he always did was he kind of planted a vision in us that our life mattered, that God had a plan. He would say, you're in your right place. God has a plan. Your day's going to come. I was usually a backup quarterback. I would sit on the bench, and my dad was always saying, hey, Jeff, keep working, keep thinking like a starter. Your day's going to come. And certainly it did. And that was largely because of his vision, his confidence, and his optimism. So I think one of the great lessons for us as dads is to be like the angel of Gideon, who spoke positive words into Gideon while he was yet to be a confident leader. He was afraid and hiding when God came to him and said, "Oh, Gideon, great and valiant warrior, the Lord is with you." I think my dad did that for me. One thing that I've been trying to do with my sons, which is a little bit of a takeoff and a different thing than my dad is, he always encouraged my performance and my leadership. But sometimes that let me put too much pressure on being a significant star. And really the most important thing to encourage in our kids is their character, their faith, and the good characteristics inside of them. Those things will never go away if their grades are bad or good, if they make the team, if they're second string, whatever. So I think it's important that we build identity and confidence and encouragement in our kids' character, not just their performance. The other thing I loved about my dad that was amazing was he hugged us and kissed us constantly. He'd embarrass me at college football games, come up afterwards and give me a kiss, but I like it. And I remember it to this day. He used to write us these note cards, these dadgrams we would call them. And this one's from 1991. I was having a tough time in pro football, and I got this in the mail to give me encouragement and perspective and love and affirmation and some guidance. We used to get them in high school, junior high. We'd get them on our pillows or at the kitchen table, or when we were in high school, they might be on the car of the seat of the car as we were going off to school. And those note cards stick with us because they gave us encouragement and identity and confidence at the time, and I hold on to them today. I think the words "I love you" are never said enough, and my dad said them a lot. And if those words are gold, then my dad definitely had the Midas touch, and I want to have that touch with my kids. We dads need to hug our kids, especially our daughters. We need to give our sons those big handshakes and those big bear hugs and say, "I'm proud of you, I believe in you, I love you, you have what it takes, you're beautiful, you're awesome." Those are the Gideon words that we need to hear from our dads, and my dad did that for me in a great way. Another great lesson about fathering that I gained from my dad is to have dinner together as a family as often as you can. It's something that Stacy and I have made central to raising our family, and my boys have told me how important it is to them. And one of the things about my family was my dad came home late from work, so Mom made dinner late and kept us up, and then we had dinner with Dad. But he brought us into the conversation of adults. We'd talk about economics. We'd talk about leadership. We'd talk about history. We talked about God. I remember Dad telling the story of the Good Shepherd who left the 99 to go after the one, which really was kind of a template for his political views, that compassion and free enterprise need to go together, and we need to serve to give others opportunity. So that was a legacy that he left us. So dads, the dinner table. And Tony Evans points this out. The dinner table is the place where the Jewish fathers and the fathers who love their kids do their best work at raising their family. So let's make that important. And bring your kids into the adult world. If you can't make dinner, do it at lunch, do it at breakfast, do it on weekends, but gather around that meal table. Finally, affirmation in families is so important. And when my dad got cancer, I wrote down a list of like 25 things that I wanted to specifically thank him for that he'd done in my life. Teaching me to throw the football, teaching my sons, his grandsons, to throw the football, teaching me to ski, teaching my sons to ski, bringing our family together for vacations, all those other things I mentioned about notes and encouragement and hugs, the vision and perspective in life that he gave me, the confidence and the optimism. He was more than one half full type of guy. The cup was, like 3/4 or 90% full in my dad's eyes. There was no problem that couldn't be surmounted. And I think optimism is one of the things that dads can bring to their kids, and tell them their stories. I tell my kids the stories of my life, the things that were tough, the areas where I failed. They don't want to repeat my failures. They want to learn from my failures and go forward. Plus, by being honest with them, I think my kids have learned that they can be real and they don't have to perform or pretend for me. And for me and my dad, that came later in life. I remember a conversation when he was running for vice president in 1996. And we were driving in the car out to my sister's house in Virginia. And I was kind of begging him to have talked to me more intimately about details of his life, not just inspiration, which he was so good at. And he said, you know, Jeff, my dad never really talked to me, so I really didn't know how to talk to you other than just to encourage you and give you vision and optimism and hope. And I valued all those things, but I was looking for more transparency. And he gave it to me that day in 1996, and we had more of that for the rest of his life. And we had even more of that during the difficult chapter in 2009 when he had cancer. And during 4 months of treatments and decline because of the melanoma, we had amazing times of intimacy, reading the Bible together, talking together, praying together, just sitting in silence together, which is rare for a Kemp to do. And I read him that list of thank yous for all the things he'd done in my life. And he and Mom and I all had a great cry and some good laughter. Don't ever hesitate to say to your kids what you really feel about them. And don't ever hesitate to tell them how much you believe in them and who they can be. Those are things my dad did. And don't ever hesitate or draw back from telling your dad that you love him and maybe forgiving him for the things that you've been somewhat bitter or resistant over, because it'll heal a relationship and you'll be able to cherish the best and not be worried about what you lacked. And finally, we dads have a responsibility and an amazing opportunity to bless our kids. And that means to pray over them, to pray for them, to ask them, how can I pray for you? Which sometimes is hard in college to have a deep conversation with your kids when they're breaking away to be their own adult. But to ask them how you can pray for them, that is something that most anyone is would cherish to hear and say, sure, here, pray about this. But I asked my dad to pray for me when he was near death, and I knew it might be leaving him for the last time on a trip from D.C. back to my home in Seattle. And I said, Dad, would you say a prayer of blessing over me? And he could only get a few words out, but they were gold. He said, Dear God, help Jeff to remember his talent and help him to remember the force for good that he can be in this world. And finally, help us both remember the only thing that matters is thy will be done. In those few words, first of all, Dad affirmed my identity, my talent. Secondly, he affirmed my purpose in life to make a difference in the world, to be a positive force for good. And finally, he took the pressure off me and made God the focus and reminded me that it isn't my performance or my status or my position. It isn't my significance in the world system of things. It is only God's will that matters. And that's where we should orient ourselves, because it's all that matters. That was the greatest blessing I could ever get. And I'm so thankful for a loving father, an encouraging father, and a visionary father. And I hope that these lessons are ones that I continue to pass on to my kids and someday to my grandkids, and really that we dads can share with one another. Because none of us need to be perfect, but we do need to be intentional. And for that, I'm very grateful for having a great dad.